Okay, let's go ahead and get started. If you get here a little bit late, which you're not getting this message, but you'll be able to have access to the recording to get all of the good stuff that we're starting with. And first, I want to thank you for joining me today, joining me live. I am thrilled to be here, and I want to share with you that I'm actually going to have a masterclass. I'm going to put on a masterclass Saturday, September 10th. It's a 3-hour masterclass. I'll tell you a little bit more about that once we finish today. But I wanted to jump in today, particularly if you downloaded my No Bullshit Guide to Emails That Convert. This is a great audio and visual following up on that guide. And then the masterclass that I was talking about actually takes that one step further and creates the emails, creates your set of emails. So I'm going to jump in real quick. I'm going to share my desktop and let's jump in to our presentation today. There we go. Hope you can see that. I'm going to give you the recording a few seconds to follow up on it. And there we go. Okay, great. Let's jump in. So today is Perfectly Persuasive Emails, and this is a training I put together. As I said, it follows up on the No Bullshit Guide to Emails That Convert, and isn't quite a full 3-hour masterclass. I'll talk to you about that when we get to the end of today. If you want to get the most out of today's training, my suggestion is turn off the phone, close your background programs, and even close your email so that you can focus in on what we're talking about. I do have a ton of free actionable information in today's training. By the way, speaking of which, for today's training, I want to make sure you're in the right place. This is the right place for you if you're a blogger, an information marketer, maybe you have an online course, an author, a professional service provider. It could be, psychotherapy, dental. It could be maybe you're a chiropractor, any kind of professional service, an engineer, coach, or consultant. What today's training is not ideal for is if you're a retailer. Say you're a jewelry shop, a coffee shop, a clothing retailer, a dress shop. In that instance, this is probably not the right training for you. You can use email very, very effectively. It's just a completely different strategy than it would be for someone who is an information marketer. Okay? You are in the right place, though, if you want more sales. Now, there's a lot of emails you can send out. There's newsletters, there's nurture emails, there's reactivation emails. Today's training is focused on sales emails. This is all about revenue from your emails. And I'm going to say, boldly that it's sales emails that don't sound like sales emails. So I want to make sure that you're in the right place for that. You're in the right place if you hate to write email. You either put it off, you procrastinate, or you just dread it, or you stare at a blank screen at a loss for words. This is the perfect place for you to be. You're in the right place if you don't know what to write. Like I said, if you're staring at a screen at a real loss for words and you don't know what to write, this is the right place for you to be. You're in the right place if you think email marketing is overly complicated. I will tell you that I do think it is complicated. I am on a personal mission to uncomplicate it, to make really powerful, persuasive email as easy as possible. And so what you're going to learn today is why email is so important to your business. I'm going to go through kind of an overview, and then we're jumping right into content, exactly what you need to say in your promotional emails or your sales emails, how many emails to send. I even give you a suggested schedule. And let's talk a little bit about subject lines that get opened. So why is email so important? Why do I focus on it? Is because the number one reason is Do you guys remember when Neil Armstrong first stepped foot on the moon? This was if you remember this iconic shot, and maybe you're too young, you weren't watching it when it happened, but you've seen this shot. It is absolutely iconic. It is dramatic. It's a dramatic moment in history. But here's the thing. This moment would have been important if we had seen it or not seen it. But but it's more valuable to us because we were able to actually witness it. We kind of shared that experience together. The other thing that I wondered is, how in the world did they take a photograph of man's first step on the moon? So I did a little bit of investigation, and this is what I found. I found that NASA had planned for this well in advance. And what they did is that you can see they kind of they kind of hooked a camera to the door of the spaceship, so that when the door flung open, it was at the exact perfect angle to get the picture of the first step on the moon. And then it was broadcast live. It was broadcast live back to classrooms, schoolrooms, to everywhere. The world stopped and watched this very first step on the moon. And this is how we saw it. This was the distribution network. And I'm sharing this story with you because your service, your product, your nonprofit mission is the first step on the moon. That's the meat. That's what we're trying to communicate. That's what we're trying to share back with your customers, your donors, your potential clients. But you got to have a way to do that. And like this camera, email is the way that, as a information marketer, as a professional service provider, as an online information marketer, all of those services, that's how you communicate, and that's how you market the value of your service to the people that can possibly buy it. Does that make sense? So, you're going to exist fine if you don't do email. You're going to really flourish and grow your business when you use email the right way. Reason number 2 is that it turns out that this is exactly how people want to hear from you. I know that we all bemoan our crowded inboxes, and we have inboxes that, show that we have, 4,000 messages that we haven't opened. But here's the thing. Marketing Sherpa conducted a survey just last year of over 2,000 people, and they said, how do you want to get promotions? The question was, how do you want to receive the promotions from the people that you buy from? Overwhelmingly, over 70% said email. We love it coming in via email. And then it goes postal mail, television ads, all of the other channels. People love to get the right kind of high quality email. These are your customers. These are your clients. These are your donors, and they want to hear from you via email. Does that make sense? Okay. Reason number 3 is you are going to get on average, the Direct Marketing Association polled their members and found that email marketing gives a 4,300% return on investment. That is the highest yielding return on investment of all online strategies. What that means is, for every dollar you put in, you're going to get $43 back. Now, that doesn't just automatically happen. And that's what today's training is about, is I want to make sure that you do get that $43 in return. Reason number 4 is that email is a whopping 40 times more powerful at acquiring new customers than Facebook and Twitter combined. Now, I am a huge fan of both social media and email marketing. I love social media for driving leads, but you got to have email to convert the leads. And that's what this study by Costora shows, is that you actually need that relationship, that connection, that ongoing conversation that email marketing gives you that you don't have with social media. Now, there's a lot of us who via Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter can drive a ton of traffic. And I'm a huge fan of driving traffic via social media, and then capturing an email address to convert those customers. And so you can see this chart shows you that email will convert at about a 6 to 8% rate, which is holding steady. This study is a few years old. That is absolutely holding steady. Convert at a below 1% rate, which is still pretty good, but it's just not as powerful as email. And you can see the top converter is organic search. That's somebody who comes looking for you specifically on Google or Yahoo or Bing. So, and this kind of sums it up. Social media is powerful for exposure and traffic, but you actually win the sale in your emails. Reason number 5 is we all get blindsided in business by just how many emails you end up writing in a sales campaign. And you think, gosh, I don't want to be the spammer. I don't want to be somebody that sends that many emails. But the reality is that it does require a certain number of emails to get the conversion, and frankly, just to communicate your message. I created a little chart here. This is rudimentary, I get it, but for, just say you have an online course, you're going to have a pre-launch blog post that you're probably going to send out, 3 or 4 emails around. If you're going to invite somebody to a webinar or a launch, maybe a grand opening, you're going to have your invites and then all the reminders. Then you're going to have your post-offer sales emails. Then you're going to have your sales emails to people that weren't necessarily engaging with you or coming to your grand opening or coming to your event or to your webinar. And then you move into onboarding emails for your new buyers, which is as critical as the sale. And then in between that, over here in the corner, you've got some confirmation emails for people, for confirming that they've registered or confirming that they're coming. So you can see it starts to add up quite a bit. Now today, all we're focusing in on are these 2 columns, exactly what you're going to say. Once somebody hears your offer, once somebody hears your pitch, your offer, what are you going to say to them in those sales emails? And whether it's to somebody who's actively engaging with you or somebody who is not actively engaging with you, but maybe on your email list, that you want to make sure that they get an opportunity to hear your offer. Now, before we jump in, I want to share with you a little bit when you say, now, who is Mandy and what gives her the credibility to talk about this stuff? I want to tell you about, let's just open with where I screwed up and have kind of learned. And I'm going to share 2 stories with you. The first is how email saved my tush for my very first online course. And it was Lead Magnet Lab, which I think is a fantastic name. Please don't go look it up. It's my very first course, and kind of like everyone's first course, it's not as elegantly put together as I would like. Granted, it was really good and it was effective, so I don't have any shame there. But I launched it, and it was kind of one of those, if you build it, they will come. I launched it, and I'm in the middle of a launch, and I've only got maybe like 2 people that have signed up to take my course, and I'm freaking out because it's nobody's buying the course. And then it turns out that one of the people who bought the course is Melanie Duncan, who is really known for her business acumen and her online courses. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, potential competition is buying my course, but nobody else is. So what I did is I got busy. I got really busy and started sending out emails. And those emails luckily saved the day. They pulled my butt out of the ditch on that course, and I ended up selling a number of slots to the course, and thankfully got great feedback. Here it was unsolicited feedback at the time from one of my students who had already jumped in and was taking the course before it even closed. And so I was able to pull it out of the ditch. But the only reason I could pull it out of the ditch was because I started sending emails. I sent an email every day, and then my last final close day, I sent something like 3 emails. I sent one in the morning, one at about 5 o'clock, and then one as the cart was getting ready to close, and thankfully saved the day. So that's why I got so enamored over when you write emails, how important those sales emails are. Because 2 things that I went on to discover. two things. One is about 60 to 75% of your sales, if you're an online information marketer, about 60 to 70% of your sales are going to come in that last 24 hours. People are just deadline driven, and that's who we are. And so all the emails that you send leading up to that are really powerful to help you make that sale, because at best, you're going to be selling only 40% at your opening, at your event, whether that's a webinar or some kind of a kickoff or some kind of a special event. You're probably only selling 40% of what you might in a sales campaign, knowing that the other 60 to maybe 75% is going to come in as your sales campaign winds down. There's another thing that shaped my thinking in a big way, and this happened about 2 or 3 years ago. I had the pleasure and the honor of creating some emails for CARE, International Relief Agency CARE, and they focus on women and children in developing countries. And one of the challenges they had at the time was that they had a fairly sizable email list, but it was really inactive. Their open rates were hovering around, sorry about that, their hover rates were hanging out around 8%. So they were not very happy with their open rates and less happy with their click-through rates. So they asked me to put together a campaign for them to increase the engagement. That's really what they wanted to do, was increase engagement in their email list. So what I did is created an email campaign of 4 emails. 2 would drop each week. So the campaign only ran for 2 weeks. But what we thought is, let's engage the audience with a quiz-like email with, asking pop questions that are related back to CARE's mission. And I will say the campaign performed extremely well. We ended up outperforming industry benchmarks for click-throughs by 277%. Not just CARE's click-throughs, but industry click-throughs by 277%. We also, interestingly enough, raised $24,000 with this campaign, which was comparable to what would have been raised had it been an out-and-out fundraising campaign. And so the lesson that we learned here is that when you touch people with the issues that they really care about, particularly in the nonprofit sector, they're going to open up their wallet no matter what. So what we did, each of these emails, ask a question, and no matter how you answered it, you got clicked over to a landing page that talked a little bit more about each of these topics, whether it was malnutrition or clean water or living in poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. You got even more information about the topic and how, together with our donors, CARE impacts that topic. And then, of course, each of them had a Donate Now button, but you can see the Donate Now button is available. It's not necessarily in your face. And the same was true on the landing page. And that's what ended up happening, is people loved the content so much that they just voluntarily donated. So it wasn't a hard push. They voluntarily donated. And by the way, as an aside, the least performing of these emails was the one with the soccer ball. The athletes competing in the London Olympics did not resonate with the audience. The remaining 3, and so the soccer ball email only raised about $900. The remaining 3 emails raised the rest of the $24,000. And more importantly, told us exactly which topics people cared the most about. So once I understood that, that really shifted my change about email marketing and the conversation that takes place in each and every email. I used to think that email needed to be brief, chippy, glamorous, really fast. And boy, this really changed my mind about that significantly. And here was the quote from the director of development at the time. Not bad for a campaign that we were just testing the interaction piece and not expecting a lot of revenue. And of course, the idea is that it's the relationship, not the software. I know that when we talk about email marketing, you can get kind of distracted with the software and what it can do and what it can't do. in this instance, it really became clear to me that it's about the relationship. Just two more slides about me. I actually was a nonprofit executive, raised $14 million in major gifts for the last nonprofit that I led. And then I jumped over to the tech side because I thought I could have more impact working for Convio. And it was a software provider that provided fundraising software for the nonprofit sector. And I joined when we had 12 clients, and I left when after we had grown the company to 1,200 clients, and joined a small consulting agency that I grew the sales for 80% in my first year there. And that's where I really got the bug for being able to help small business grow their business as much as I cared about helping the nonprofit sector. So that's why I launched my own firm, so that I could actually serve both markets. So I do serve small business and nonprofits. And I would say at any given time, my client list is split 50-50. And so you can see I've been featured in Forbes and Boost blog traffic. I'm a speaker in for many organizations. And then here are some of the clients that I've had the pleasure of being able to work for. Okay, enough about me. Let's get into you. What do you say in your emails that your readers must believe? So first of all, before we kick off on this, the modern consumer only now pays attention when something matches their unique preferences, needs, and lifestyles. And that's why I went so far at the beginning of this training to say, hey, look, I'm not for retailers. This training is not for retailers. Love retailers. Send me all the coupons you want. I don't want to waste an hour of your time. So, this is definitely for information marketers, nonprofit organizations, bloggers. This is for people who really need to have a copywritten communication with their audience. So every buyer, and this is true for you as much as it is for the people that you're selling to or the donors that you're reaching out to. We all have psychological cues that we need to believe before we confidently say yes, and particularly in an online marketplace, in an online atmosphere, because in the online space, we can't shake your hand. We can't look at you in the eye. We're not picking up on the body language cues as well as we do in person. So that's what makes these beliefs so critical. I'm going to run you through those, and that's really the crux of today's training, because once you get this and convey the information around this wheel, number one, it establishes you as an expert and the authority in your area. And I don't care if you're saving elephants in Africa or selling how to become a sous chef. I don't care what it is. These beliefs are where you need to be. The first is, you always have to lead with a big promise. You have to be really crisp and clear about what your promise is. And you want to make sure you're giving your reader or your buyer or your donor what they want, not what they need. And so I'm going to give you a couple of ordinary examples in today's training. But that's the reason I'm holding a masterclass, is people said, I'm kind of struggling with some of these, and so I'd love to be able to go a little bit deeper. But I digress. So we all need toilet paper, but nobody sells toilet paper saying, hey, you're either going to wipe or you're not going to wipe, so buy our toilet paper. You're not going to sell a lot of toilet paper that way. What we want is to feel clean, and we want to feel clean without feeling scratched Sorry about that, guys. My computer just like crashed. I got the light blue screen. I'm going to jump back in and restart the share here right where we were at. So thank you for sticking with me. Here we go. Okay, I think we're back on track. Let me double check. I'm getting messages from folks. Okay, great. It sounds like you can hear me. So I'm going to go back to my screen. Oops. I guess it would help if I brought my presentation back up. That might help. So sorry about that, guys. I've never had that happen before. Boo-hoo. And I was just getting to the good part. All right, here we go. People. Okay, good. Okay, thanks, Dara. I really appreciate that. All right, let me get back here. It's always nice to have friends on Facebook Messenger. Okay, let me get back here. Okay, so back on track. Okay, so you want to have your big promise. That's huge. And here's the thing that's the important part about the big promise is it needs to be powerful enough to black. Okay, we're not getting it. Hang on, let me see if I can do this. Share. Share. How about now? So guys, I'm really sorry about this. Here we go. You should be back now. Let's see. Okay. Now. Okay, great. I'm going to get back to it. So we are going to get past this big promise, I promise you. So the big promise, you want to make sure that you have your big promise that is crisp, clear, and is a reason to keep reading. It's disruptive enough to get somebody's attention and powerful enough to get them to keep reading. So then the next piece, and the next piece is very interesting because it's benefits and features. Now, features are the things that, that are available with your product. The benefits are what those things really mean to your buyer. So, and I go through examples of each of these in today's training, but real benefits that we care about, what people really care about is more money, more family time, more admiration, and less hassle. Those are really kind of the benefits that people are looking for in their life, whether it's transformational or just something that is makes life easier so that you can spend your time doing the things that you want to do. We'll go into more of those because I break down each of these. The next is emotion, and I will tell you that nobody buys without emotion. Our stock market runs on emotion, and so every transaction will also run on emotion. I've got some great tips for you on identifying the right emotions and conveying those emotions. It's easier to do than you think, so I don't want you kind of getting freaked out about it. The next is our beliefs that are specific to your product. Now, this could be certifications, this could be credibility issues, this could be your specific method works over somebody else's method. These are they're specific to your industry and specific to your product. And again, that's why I'm going to run this masterclass, is so that we can dig in a little bit deeper to identify what some of those are. Next is social proof. This is so critical in online marketing because, as I mentioned, we can't see your eyes, we can't shake your hand. The only way that we know that you're credible is if other people say you're credible, or if we have testimonials, if there's reviews, are there certifications. And I'm going to give you a little hint here that also just that online checkout is really important to share the security logos, because that's social proof that you're a credible transaction and people aren't going to have their identity stolen by buying from you. The next is urgency and scarcity. Nothing, I don't know about you, but I'm a deadline person, and it really helps to have a deadline to get people motivated. What is it? I was reading last year at Christmas time, at the holiday, that something like 40% of all Christmas shoppers don't even start Christmas shopping until the week before Christmas. So I don't think I'm alone in being deadline oriented, and science tells us that that is the case. So you always want to build in some kind of urgency or some kind of scarcity into your sales cycle. Again, I'll show you some great examples to do that. Finally, there's the last two are the easy button, which is, it kind of goes back to the time factor. People want to know that you're easy to work with, that it's going to be easy to buy from you, that it's going to be easy to use your product or your service or access it. And sometimes it isn't easy. I'll be the first to admit. Oftentimes it's not. If you're a nonprofit and maybe you're running an event, you have people signing up for a marathon, you have a lot of information you need to get from them. If that's the case, then the substitute for easy is no surprises. Outline and articulate everything that your buyer will experience so that it looks clear and it comes across as easy. If your registration process or your buying process takes 3 minutes, articulate just 3 more minutes and you'll be on your way with ... As long as you're setting the correct expectation, that's equivalent to the easy button. It's kind of like the easy button or the no surprise button. And then finally, freedom of choice. Now, there's like over 26 studies that demonstrate that we don't like to be sold to. People do not like the hard push, the hard sell, which I don't think we needed to spend money on 26 studies to understand that. But the nuance here is 2 things. One is when you communicate that the choice is up to your buyer, that does relieve you and puts you more in a position of authority than somebody who's trying to do a hard sell. The second piece that is even more important is we live in a world with so many choices that sometimes I don't think it's freedom of choice. I think we have freedom of too much choice. And what people really want to know, what your buyers really want to know, is that they're making the right choice. So when you acknowledge that they have multiple choices and why your choice is the right one for them, you're actually helping them to make the right decision. All right, let's dig into each of these. Big promise. The big promise could be earn an extra $2,500 a month as a voiceover performer, or maybe career advancement without the crushing student loans. That's pretty clear. Or how about your child can successfully prepare for college and beyond without a standard high school curriculum and be far ahead of their peers by graduation. These are all real and very powerful big promises. Some are transformational and some are just getting people to the next step in their life. But it's very clear what's in it for your buyer and enough to get me to read further. That's really the job of your big promise. I wanted to show you a really great example of Marta Kagan. Marta sells presentation training to entrepreneurs and software startups so that they can get venture capital funding. So when they're putting together this presentation, it's gonna, it can win them anywhere from a couple of million in angel funding to 20 million in venture capital funding. So this is a big deal. It's not a cheap course, but her promise is that you're gonna be competitive in the venture funding world. You can go from yawn to yes in just 6 weeks, and that promise in there is speaking directly to the entrepreneurs trying to win venture funding. She's just brilliant. I highly recommend her. Next are benefits and features. And as I mentioned, we're persuaded by the benefits, not the features. I'm going to give you some examples, but keep these in mind. What we care most about are love, money, acceptance, which is the admiration piece, and free time. What we want less of is stress, conflict, hassle, and uncertainty. So uncertainty is why I always insert the easy button into my email communication. So here's what I want you to do is really think about, when we're talking about benefits, is what does your product or service or nonprofit do that hits on these topics for your reader? Because if you're not hitting on these topics, that's probably where you're kind of doing a rim shot. The ball's hitting the rim, but it's not quite going in. It's hitting the outside of the target, but you want to hit the bullseye. These items are the bullseye. These items are the middle of the basket. The example here is people don't buy a mattress, they buy a good night's sleep. And I've noticed that Tempur-Pedic takes it one step further. They skip the mattress. They go right from getting a good night's sleep leads to the kind of life you want to live. It leads to your life's potential. So they're selling living to your fullest potential because you got a good night's sleep, because you bought their mattress. Do you see how they kind of back into that? That's brilliant, brilliant advertising. So the benefits that are what the features mean for your buyer: more financial independence, more time with your kids. You get to feel liberated. You get to feel like you belong. You're going to be admired. You're going to be recognized. You're going to be famous, whatever those are. To you is, for every feature, for every free shipping, for free delivery, for we're going to haul your old mattress away, those are all features. And if you're selling and pushing those as the reason for somebody to buy, that might be why you're not getting the sales that you want. Take it one step further and figure out what the benefit is. So if, say, for example, you have as a benefit that you'll haul the old mattress away, that's a feature. Maybe what you can do is take your communication one step further and say, so you don't hurt your back or waste a valuable Saturday morning trying to figure out where to dump an old mattress. Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's go through. All right, emotion. So emotion is an interesting piece because you have to have it. In fact, you have to have all of these. But I always recommend that you start with the emotion that first inspired your buyers to engage with you, or first inspired your donor to donate to you. Okay, whatever that emotion is. Now, it could be that you don't, it could be that you don't know what it is, and I've got a backup for you if you don't know what it is. But if you do know what it is, if it has been, people want to make more money, they want more time with their family, they want more, they want to be recognized more, they want more admiration. If you know what those emotions are, then you know exactly what you want to speak to. If you don't know what those emotions are, I'm giving you a couple of tools in this training. The first is, don't be too overwhelmed by this emotion wheel. It's actually pretty handy to kind of go through and really think about what are the emotions associated with your product or your service, or your nonprofit organization. Now, the second wheel, the reason I'm sharing that with you is because this wheel was created by, I think it was Buffer that created it, but what they did is they analyzed 1 billion social media shares for the emotions associated with those shares, with the idea that if somebody feels an emotion that they're willing to share, then that's a pretty powerful emotion. That's an emotion you're pretty safe in a marketing realm with. And so what they did is they created it in sort of an eye tracking heat map way, which I don't know why that's how they present it. But I think it's helpful to see that what people really, the emotions that people really share with each other, so that means it resonates with them, are anticipation, expectancy, anything that's sort of curiosity provoking, or on the other side of that, you can see surprise, uncertainty, some kind of a distraction. So people like it when things are a surprise, when they are counterintuitive. The next one is admiration. So people like to be recognized. They like to be admired, and I like it. There's that is no real surprise. And then the next kind of powerful set are the joy emotions: serenity, cheerfulness, delight, elation, and ecstasy. What you will notice is that people don't really share a lot of the anger, disgust, or sadness. Now, I think you hear that on the news. I think you see that on the news, and sometimes you see that in social media, that you think that, it kind of feels like that's all there is going on out there. But the reality is that people aren't sharing a lot of that stuff. It's a very small group that, just kind of thrives on that anger. So you kind of need to avoid that. Now, what if you're working in suicide prevention? You're going to say, Mandy, how do I avoid sadness? How do I avoid some of those negative pieces when, the missions we're working on are incredibly tough issues? And what you don't want to do, you don't want to avoid the sadness and the horror and some of those emotions associated with it, but you also want to excuse me. You want to marry those emotions with what we call the theory of change in the nonprofit sector, which is people will only give to you if they think there's really hope that this problem can be fixed. So then that's where you kind of need to come in with the surprise or the admiration or some of the anticipation. Marry that with the sense of hope and a clear path to fixing the problem. And that's going to help you win more funding for your program. Okay? So when we talk about emotion, you can actually, I've noticed retailers are actually pretty good at speaking to emotion. Things like turn your friends green with envy. If they're trying to get you to buy their product to look better or to sound better or to smell better. But you don't actually have to use words for emotion. You can arouse emotion through a story or an image. And I wanted to share this resource with you that Dr. Jennifer Aker at Stanford's Graduate School of Business, she analyzed fundraising appeals that told stories versus fundraising appeals that didn't tell stories. And what she found is that when you told a story in your email, you raised over twice as much as the nonprofit organizations that just kind of stated the facts and told and kind of were more scientific and factual. Now, there's some secrets of great stories. You can tell a story that leads to a call to action in a single email, or you can tell one story across a series of emails. Now, oftentimes for your year-end appeal, you'll do it this way, where you start the story in early December and you carry it all the way through to the end of year appeal. Or you'll do it for a specific topic. Maybe you're raising money for Zika virus. You might start with, the story of a young family that's expecting and what their journey through the Zika virus is like and what can be done to prevent the spread of the Zika virus. You have the ability to do that in a single email or over an arc. The only thing I would say to you is if you're using an ARC, and I've seen this done very successfully in business as well, as a copywriter, I've got to tell you, that's hard to pull off over a series of emails. I tend to defer to telling a single story in a single email, but I have seen this be incredibly, incredibly powerful, particularly in your welcome emails for converting somebody into a customer. You know, they're just getting to know you, you welcome them, and you begin a story, and you tell that story over 3 or 4 emails over the course of a week, and it can be incredibly powerful for turning that total stranger into somebody who feels that they know you, can trust you, and they're going to buy from you. So there are 20 different types of stories, and this kind of comes out of the script writing era in Hollywood. But the truth is, for you in business or nonprofit, you only need 3 stories. But here's the twist. You need these 3 stories. These are powerful for you. The first is the challenge plot, and that's where the story of the underdog or the rags to riches, where, you know, through sheer willpower or brain power, you triumph over adversity. Think about Wall-E or A Beautiful Mind, where you were able to turn the tables and overcome adversity. Whether it's you overcoming that adversity or one of your clients or one of your beneficiaries. The next is a connection plot, and that's about a story about people who develop a relationship that bridges a gap, whether that's a racial gap, an ethnic gap, a religious gap, a demographic gap. Just think Romeo and Juliet. Now that could be, you know, I don't have, maybe somebody who says, I just was not a college-bound kind of person. It's the Bill Gates story. Drops out of college, connection plot, goes and sets up in a garage and, you know, starts a company in a garage, and everyone, you know, can think, oh God, you know, some teenager that drops out of Harvard and starts a company in a garage, that's not going to end well. But then all of a sudden it does end well, and he, you know, forms Microsoft and goes on to great riches. The same is true for Apple. You know, Steve Jobs and Wozniak started in a garage. You know, garages seem to be really powerful and very iconic. So there's the connection plot. The next is the creativity plot, and that involves somebody making a mental breakthrough or attacking a problem in an innovative way. These are all stories that I want you to think about. I want you to think about from both from yourself and from people that you work with. And even if you don't have immediate stories that pop to mind, it's okay to tell these stories from a historical perspective, to maybe share a story about one of the stories that I once shared was how the popsicle was named. It was the guy who invented a popsicle. I think he actually called it creamsicle, or he called it something else that was related to what it, you know, to what the product really was, and that's what he filed the patent for it under. But then he ended up changing the name because his kids, of course, fell in love with the popsicle, and all they knew is that Dad was an inventor, and their pop invented this sickle. So that's why they called it the popsicle. So at some point, Dad just said, I got to go along with what the kids say. And there you have the name of the popsicle. You can use creative stories that are not specifically yours to make your point. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So if you take away only one thing from this training, it's going to be this. You want to brainstorm your own stories for each of these plot lines, because you will use them again and again and again. So if you come up with multiple stories for each of these plot lines, that's fantastic. Put them in a bank and save them. So the challenge plot, when were you the underdog? When was your customer the underdog? When was your beneficiary the underdog? And how did that story come about? How did that play out? The connection plot, when did you bridge, figure out a relationship between cause and effect, or cross a class gap. Do you know of someone who did? Do you even know of a historical character who did? And then what is the creativity plot? When did you have a mental breakthrough, or know of when a mental breakthrough came through? Does that make sense? Okay, great. Which, by the way, I do want to share a story with you on Thomas Edison and the light bulb. You know, we all think that Thomas Edison and the light bulb, that, you know, the great quote about he's found 1,000 ways, you know, how not to do something, but he only needed to find one way to find it. And so you have this vision of Thomas Edison, you know, alone in a garage, trying to figure out how to make the light bulb work. Well, the truth is, in reality, Thomas Edison had a pretty big team. He had financial backing, and he had a pretty significant team. He had financial backers who knew that he was on the edge of something really lucrative, coming through with something really lucrative. And to boot, he had competition. Westinghouse was in another garage in exactly the same spot that he was, trying to develop, you know, the light bulb at exactly the same time. That's why Westinghouse is such a big name in light bulbs, as, you know, as much as Thomas Edison. Now, Thomas Edison got the credit for it, but I think most people don't understand that he had a huge team and he had a lot of competition. So there was a lot of pressure and a lot of resources that were brought to bear on that breakthrough. And so there's a breakthrough story that you can share anywhere you want. Here's some examples. I had a client, Armbruster Consulting, and she was launching a new course on how to get corporate sponsorships. It's a pretty fantastic course, by the way. And so I wrote her, what I did is I asked her for as many stories as she could write in, you know, as she could share with me in one email. She didn't even need to talk to me on the phone. I just wanted to know some stories that had impacted her over her life. Here are 3 of the stories, and we used the 4th one in her presentation, which I have to tell you, because the 4th one that we used is so off the wall, and it was the pivot. It was the piece that people really remembered about her. So don't let me leave before I share that story with you. But here's an email, and I really recommend if these work for you, you know, borrow the language and switch them up. The first was, if somebody registered for her webinar, she sent you a behind the scenes. This was a backstage pass behind the scenes of how she was putting together her course. And, you know, just once, and the point of this email was to get to know Rachel, was to be, you know, start to be comfortable thinking, oh, I could really work with this person. I really want to know who she is. So that's how we opened it up. We gave a backstage pass. You can see exactly how she works and how she scribbles up on a white piece of paper and how she begins her process. People really like that because it did give them some clue as to who she is. It also gave her an opportunity to send out a quick little bonus content to her subscribers. The next was, she has a confession to make, and instead of the classic case study, we actually put one of her clients' story into a story form. She said, but first I want to tell you the story from a few years ago. When you tell people you're going to tell them a story, you set yourself up for success, because we all love stories. And then she goes on to tell a story about how they wanted to make more money for Make-A-Wish, because they, you know, Make-A-Wish Foundation needs 50,000 round-trip tickets every year just to cover the basic flights for their wishes, not any of the other costs. And so they wanted to work on getting more donated airline miles. And this second email tells you exactly how they accomplished that. And then her confession was that it didn't take rocket science to get those results. It's the same formula that she was about to share with her folks in a webinar. So then the next email was that she had another confession to make, and that was that her career high of being one of the people who introduced those Livestrong yellow bracelets to the world. She was working for Livestrong at the time, and her, and one of her corporate sponsors was Nike, and they conceived of that campaign and launched it, which by any stretch has been an extraordinary marketing campaign. But she shares a story that what it really meant to her was that wasn't the glory or the success of that campaign that really mattered to her. It was the fact that at the time, her mother had been diagnosed with cancer. And it really came home to roost when, after going through all that journey with cancer, she was able to, her mom was still able to see her first grandson born and be at his christening. And so she shares that moment in her email. So she's getting rather personal here, but you begin to know who Rachel is, and you begin to make a decision that, gosh, I can trust her and I can definitely work with her, because not only does she know what she's doing, but she's coming at this from all the right angles. The final story we saved, because it was just precious, we saved for her training, which was she talks about, did you ever see the movie Working Girl? And this might be a chick only thing, I don't know, but did you ever see the movie Working Girl? And that scene in the elevator where Melanie Griffith says to Harrison Ford said, how did you get such a good head for business? And she looks at him and she says, I can connect dots. That is where I excel. I can put things together. I can connect the dots better than anybody I know. And Rachel shares that story in her training because that's what she brings to the table. She knows how to connect the dots. She was able to connect the dots between Nike, a yellow bracelet, and fighting cancer. That was her talent, and that's what she brought to the table. And I will tell you, that story got more comments than anything else in her training, and she shared a lot in that training. I want to share a couple of other examples. I'm spending a lot of time on stories because it's really big for you. I don't care who you are, it's big for you in email marketing. And I want to share with you a couple of examples from Ramit Sethi, who is a master storyteller in his emails. And he's got a couple of examples here that, if you can't steal word for word, you're going to wish you could, but he's a brilliant storyteller in Indian parents' advice to their kids. Age 18, don't date anyone. Age 21, don't date. Age 23, don't date. Age 25, why aren't you married? And it's just a great way to open up an email and tell a story about how we are trained to be conservative. We are trained to wait too long to take action and take an opportunity. And he delivers that in a fantastic way. Now, the next one that you absolutely, it's sneaky good, and you've got to steal it, and you should definitely use it for your very next email, is what I call the one piece of advice that's not even yours. You can say, I just read this great book, and I've got to tell you, here's the summary, where you summarize the takeaways. First of all, people love the summary kind of thing because you're saving them a ton of time. You're just pulling out the big nuggets, and they never have to read the book. Even though you're saying, oh, you've got to read this book or you've got to read this article, you're delivering top-notch advice that may be similar to yours, not yours. You're sharing third-party advice, but it also delivers your message. So when I said to you, if you don't actually have stories of your own, I don't want you to panic. You can borrow current contemporary stories like this. You can borrow the, I just discovered something pretty fantastic that somebody shared with me. I'm delivering it to you here. Or you can share a story about Abraham Lincoln, and he didn't want to chop down the cherry tree. You can pull stories from historical figures as well. So you've got plenty of story space to go on. And I will tell you that in the September 10th masterclass, we're going to spend a full hour on the right kind of stories to tell, because it is that important to your email marketing. So then we go on to social proof. And I want to check and see how we're doing time-wise. I know I've probably gone overboard here a little bit. I've gone a little bit over, so I'm going to zip it up real quick. Social proof, you definitely want to make sure that you have testimonials as seen in, how many other people are doing it. And if you have any star ratings, maybe you do, maybe you have certifications that you can show. Here's an example of how many people join our community of 300,000 bloggers. Or social proof as seen in or seen on secure transactions. You can see all of the secure transaction buttons that are available to you. Assure people that you're trustworthy to do business with. Urgency and scarcity, it's human nature to wait until the last minute. So one of the best urgency and scarcities is actually to set a time where the sale ends or your cart closes. And then I'm a huge fan of using deadline funnel, of actually putting a countdown clock into your emails. In fact, I have an unlimited number of licenses for countdown clocks because they're so powerful. They just kind of let people know how long they have to act. And I don't think, from a standpoint of sharing information, it is not high pressure. For somebody like me who does work off of deadlines, it's actually really good information. Thank you for letting me know I only have 9 hours to do this. And that's how most people are going to see it. I wanted to share this from Team in Training, Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Their subject line is the most brilliant urgency and scarcity subject line ever. If there's a way that you can borrow this and modify it for your own use, I say go for it. 3 days only. So they're giving you urgency. $33 registration for sold out Lava Man Triathlon. And there's the scarcity, because the only way you can get into the Lava Man Triathlon is to join the Team in Training, or the Team in Training team on that event. This is the most fantastic urgency scarcity subject line ever. Like, no one can do anything better than that. If you've noticed when you book on Expedia, do you ever notice how Expedia says only 3 left at 355? That is urgency. Now, when people see that, they think you're doing them a favor by letting you know how many, that you're going to lose out on this price. The same is true with Amazon. Now, most people think that Amazon is just providing you with a wealth of information on, if you want it by tomorrow, July 3rd, you need to order within the next 9 hours or 23 minutes. That is very subtle urgency, and it's fantastic. The other is a countdown clock. You can always use a countdown clock and you can see I've just triggered this countdown clock to let people know that they need to act within the next 15 minutes. Some other ideas for urgency and scarcity: early bird registration, almost sold out. I'm only allowing 25 people to register, 50% off. You have those urgency and scarcity pieces. The easy button, this is where there's a number of factors that relate back to the easy button. Number one is overcoming objections. That's, tackling why people might not want to buy head on. But it's also, as I mentioned, it's about making it easy to do business with you, making it easy to buy, making it easy to get started. And if it's not easy, making it really clear on how to do it. And then finally, your freedom of choice. And this is where people want to know that they're making the right choice. Not just that they have a choice, but that they're making the right choice. And I'm going to encourage you to go all the way through and say, I know that these are the 5 choices that you're probably looking at, and here's why this is the very best choice. And even if people say, look at that analysis and say, no, I think the other one is the right choice, that's okay, because they're still going to have a ton of respect for you for giving them the kind of information that they needed to make the right choice. And I think that business comes back to you in the long run, no matter what. Okay, a couple of phrases you definitely want to use in your email copy. The choice is yours. You have a choice to make. I support whatever you choose, and know that, so that you're making it really clear that you're not putting high pressure on people. I'm going to skip through this. Because due to our technical difficulties, we ran over time. But what I'll do is send this out to you with email copy, with some framework for some email copy, so that you can see what that series might look like. And the same is true with attention-grabbing subject lines. by now, because your emails are so informative and so powerful and so full of emotion and stories, you're already getting opened. You're just your name is causing people to open your emails. But you still want to get as many emails opened as possible, so you want your subject lines to be really powerful. And also remember, even if they don't open up your email, every email you send out is kind of a brand awareness because it's got your name and a subject line associated with it. So keep that in mind, that oftentimes when people don't have time, even if they'd want to, they don't have time to open your email, you're making an impression. Core formula for subject lines is benefit and curiosity equals interest. But what I've got in this presentation are subject lines that you can swipe and use, like from lackluster to gangbusters has worked for me every time, and it's going to work for you because all you need to do is put in your topic or your subject. Backstage pass works for me every time. Are you coming to the biggest party? It works for me all the time. I will tell you 7 reasons you'll be sorry you missed this event or this webinar or this whatever. That is a solid subject line that again gets huge opens. I will, in my follow-up email, I'll give you a link to this free Steal My Subject Lines, which not only has subject lines that you can steal, but it talks about everything that I would have gone through here and gives you a free tool on how to test to make sure you're conveying emotion in each of your subject lines. And I'll show you. Here's a couple that we tested. Really good copywriters are going to get an emotional quotient of 30 to 40%. If you're getting 50% or higher in your emotional subject line, you're going to have a lot of opens. So from lackluster to gangbuster, job prospects is 50%, which means that it's a very successful subject line. Every swimmer's worst fear, same thing. Now that can work for your product or service or nonprofit. Every worst fear, it's going to get people to open it. That's a killer subject line. You got to steal that one. Are you coming to the biggest party? I'm telling you, I've used this and it works like gangbusters. And you can see that it's highly emotionally charged. So you are not alone. I will tell you that this has worked really well for me. It's not working as well as it did, say, 2 years ago. And I think the reason is that people are using it. I've seen it more times than not, and people are using it. I want you to remember that in your emails, captions under your images are read an average of 300% more than your body copy itself. So make that caption work. And that could often be a call to action, or your most powerful big promise is really a good thing to put in there. Now, I really want to quickly, if you're still with me, thank you so much for that. And again, I apologize for my technical glitches. I'm going to run this training again next Wednesday, at least one more time next Wednesday before the masterclass, which is on Saturday, September 10th. And I'm just going to ask you, what if your next sales email campaign was perfectly persuasive? And the one after that, and every email campaign after that was solid. It was full of information that moved people through the sales process without a hardcore pitch. You're just giving people the information that they need to make the right decision. And you can see that when it came to Rachel's emails, I think it was like the second or the third email we sent out, we used the subject line from lackluster to gangbusters. And this is the kind of feedback she started getting on her emails. I'm obsessed with these emails. That's the kind of loyalty and obsession you want to have when you're getting ready to go through a sales cycle. You can do this the easy way, or you can do this the hard way, which is testing everything. And I know Dara's on the call. I don't know if she's still with us or not because we're running over time, but I sent her a message, I think it was yesterday, that like, if I could, if there's a wrong step to take, sometimes I feel like I take that step. I just have to take that step and do everything the hard way. And what I want to do is spare you doing everything the hard way. by joining me for this perfectly persuasive email masterclass. Now, it's going to be 3 hours long, and it's Saturday, September 10th. If you can't make it live, you're going to get everything, you'll get all the recordings, and you can send me your questions in advance. But this is brand new. I have not done this before. And the reason that I'm doing this is because people wanted time, live time, to be able to talk through what are each of those messages, and particularly talk through their powerful stories. Because, smart marketers not only know that stories are powerful to their emails, but they know that stories are powerful to their entire sales process. And so they want to make sure they get that right. And there is a specific order and way that you need to tell a story inside of an email. And I'm going to give you exactly the tips to do that. And by the way, the tip is on a story you do not start with at the beginning. You never start a story at the beginning in an email. But the masterclass, what I'm going to do is give you email templates for every one of the emails we talk through your sales cycle through. Each of them are going to have the triggers, what you need to say, and I'm going to actually show you how to put those together very, very quickly, the fastest way possible. And so you're going to write high converting emails every time. We're going to talk about the stories to tell in your emails and exactly how to tell them, so you don't have to have a degree in fine arts to do it. I'm just going to actually give you the exact formula for doing it. And subject line shortcuts, so your emails pop in crowded inboxes. And the one free tool that I use that cuts my email writing time in half. Seriously, this is going to save you hours, and it's free, and this is going to blow your mind. And then, of course, bring your questions, whatever they may be. And I am looking for specific questions from you on your specific product, your specific message. We are going to hammer those out on Saturday, September 10th, starting at noon Eastern time. I've got the course. What we're going to do is spend an hour on messaging. We're going to spend an hour on stories. And then I've got a full hour set aside for answering everybody's individual questions. If that hour isn't enough, I am going to take a break and come back, and we're going to stick with it until we get your questions answered. I want you to walk away with emails that are done. They may not be copy edited. You're probably going to refine them after our workshop, but you are going to go to bed Saturday night knowing that you have the most powerful sales emails you've ever had. What you're going to create is revenue, because your emails are going to be so much more powerful. They're going to establish you as an authority in your field and move your prospect all the way through to a buy button. You're going to tell the most powerful stories the right way. And what you're going to get is the live masterclass training. After the training, you'll get the recorded version and MP3 versions, so you have lifetime access to them. You're going to get all my cheat sheets, my templates, my PDFs, and a list of all the tools that I use in my copywriting and sending out emails. And then, of course, you're going to get my feedback and the community feedback of everyone in the masterclass, and then, of course, anyone that's in my Facebook group. And here's an example of one of the email templates. So you've got the Big Promise email template. I actually give you annotated notes as well as prompts inside of each of those emails, so that you can refer back to these again and again and again. This isn't just about writing one set of sales emails. You're going to be really proud every time you hit the send button. And I want to make sure that who this masterclass is for. It's for bloggers, nonprofit organizations, online course providers, authors, coaches, consultants, professional services. And I can share some testimonials with you, but what I want to do is make sure that you know that I'm giving you a 60-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. If you go through the training and you're like, this is not for me, then absolutely I don't want you to feel like you have to explain yourself to me. So here's what you get. The cost of it is $47, and you can go to this link to actually register right now. Again, recapping what you're going to get for it is lifetime access to the masterclass, the recording, the material, MP3, access to my private Facebook group for ongoing personalized feedback, email templates, cheat sheets, recommended tools, and annual updates. Now, I will tell you, unlike Facebook, email doesn't change that much. But anytime I update this, you get access to that, to those updates. So again, there's the link. And I think at this point, you might even be seeing a link down below. But here's what would happen next. You'll click through to that link. Hit $47 for the masterclass to reserve your spot. And I think because we are so far over, I'm going to hold off on questions. Yeah, we are way over. I'm going to hold off on questions for right now and let you know that I'm holding this training again next Wednesday. And I promise I'll have fewer technical glitches with it. And I will have my chat box set up to make asking questions easier. And you can also email me any questions that you've got. But I would love to see you at Perfectly Persuasive Email Masterclass, because as of September 10th, you'll have a fully rewritten, powerful set of emails that you know will convert your leads and prospects into buyers. All right? So thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to wrap this up. And I really appreciate your time, and I will make this recording available to you too. I'll follow up with a email to you. There we go. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And again, I apologize for the technical glitches. I will either see you next Wednesday or I will see you on Saturday for our masterclass.